Not giving a fuck. I don't need nobody who don't need me. I ask you how you feel, but you act too tough. You're gonna wish I didn't remember my worth. This is how a bad bitch gets over the hurt. The hurt. You're gonna never see my face again. I'm gonna have you looking. Never see my face again. Gonna be on that lurking shit. Boy, I'm blocking you, forgetting you, laughing at your lousy excuse. When they ask about you, I'll be saying who? I was too good for you. You know it too. Feeling brand new, no tears in mascara is waterproof. When they ask about you, I'll be saying who? Who? We were so over when you lost my trust. You treat me like a random, boy, you were the worst. Don't matter if you're handsome, I don't got the thirst. If you wanted my hand in marriage, you should've put me first. You're gonna never see my face again. I'm gonna have you looking. Never see my face again. Gonna be on that lurking shit. Boy, I'm blocking you, forgetting you, laughing at your lousy excuse. When they ask about you, I'll be saying who? I was too good for you. You know it too. Feeling brand new, no tears in mascara is waterproof. When they ask about you, I'll be saying who? Who? Good luck finding someone dumb enough like I was. You're gonna need it. Good luck getting over the best thing you ever had. Oh, I'm sorry. Does that make you sad? Boy, I'm blocking you, forgetting you, laughing at your lousy excuse. When they ask about you, I'll be saying who? I was too good for you. You know it too. Feeling brand new, no tears in mascara is waterproof. When they ask about you, I'll be saying who? Who? Good luck getting over the best thing you ever had. Good luck getting over the best thing you ever had. Saying ho, saying ho, saying ho, saying ho.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Gayxyz. It is April 20th, 2018. It is 420. Actually, yeah, April 20th, right? Yeah, so it's 420 today. So happy 420. Happy April 20th, 2018. After a very long hiatus, Gayxyz is back on. So Jason was supposed to be here with me tonight, but he didn't show up and stood me up. So I'm not sure if he's coming back to the show or not. But whatever the case may be, I am here, and I hope you will listen in and see what we have to say tonight, or I have to say, rather. So I wanted to first tell you that song is called Who, and it is by Chris Crocker, of all people. And I'm sure you know who Chris Crocker is. He is the one that did the Leave Britney Alone video many years ago, and he's done much more since then. He's done porn, he's done movies, he's a gay B-star or whatever. But he's awesome. I think he's really cool and empowering, and I love anyone who is empowering like he is. So he's got some good messages. And anyway, this album is just came out, and it's actually really, really good, especially for a first-timer and a freshman album. He obviously had some professionals working with him on this. I don't know about the writing, if it was him or others, but it's well produced and sounds pretty much like a regular album you would hear from a regular star. I mean, you can tell it's kind of a freshman album in a way, and some of the way he sings and whatever, but he's a pretty good singer, and it's actually really good. So I really like it. And there's another track on there. There's several, but Who's really good. But there's another one I really like. It's kind of more of a ballad. It's called Where I Begin, which if I remember, I'll play at the end of the show. But definitely check out his album. And of course, he's on YouTube all the time. You can find him on there. He's always on Instagram and Twitter, so you can find him anywhere. But I'm sure you'll recognize him if you see him. And anyway, check him out. So yeah, so today is 420, so April 20th, 2018. So now 420, for those of you who don't know, is a day where those who partake in marijuana or pot or Mary Jane or whatever the fuck you want to call it, grass, weed, whatever, because it's to celebrate that. And although no one really knows exactly where it came from, the 420 thing, but apparently, according to Chris Conrad, who's the curator of the Oaksterdam Cannabis Museum in Oakland, California, 420 started as a secret code among high schoolers in the early 70s. A group of friends in Marin County, California high school by the name of San Rafael High School, who called themselves the Waldos, would often meet at 4:20 p.m. to get high. And for them, it was an ideal time. They were out of school, but their parents still weren't home, giving them a window of time to just do whatever they wanted. And so they met at that time every day near the statue of Louis Pasteur, the scientist who pioneered pasteurization. So anyway, it's pretty funny. And that's why we now pretty much have 420. There's a lot of rumors and speculation as to why we have that day. Where the 420 came from. There's a lot of different myths. Another one is that it was because of the Bob Dylan song "Rainy Day Women," number 12 and 35, and its lyric "Everybody must get stoned." Multiply 12 by 35, and you get 420. And then there was another one saying that the police radio code and the LAPD and NYPD have a 420 code, but it's actually for something else. So anyway, the point is that it's a day where people celebrate their love of hemp, marijuana, whatever, and the dried leaves and female flowers of the hemp plant, basically. So I think it's and you know how I feel about this. I've never been a huge drug person or whatever. I've never done any drugs in my life until about 6 months ago. I never even used marijuana. So I have since then, and I think it's fine. I think that I don't really get to consider marijuana a drug, but up until just a few months ago, 6 months ago, whatever, I had never done anything at all. I'm very straight-laced that way about drugs, and I don't really usually like to use drugs or anything that kind of alters my sense of self or whatever. I don't drink that often, and when I do, I don't get drunk out of my ass or whatever because I hate being drunk. It's horrible. I think, and that's the other thing. I think being drunk is far worse than being stoned or high on pot. And for me, I personally don't like to smoke anything that goes in my lungs or whatever, even pot, which they say doesn't really harm you the way cigarettes do in your lungs. But I have asthma, and so it's not good for me. So I've only ever once done that and inhaled it through a cigarette, and I didn't like it. And it really didn't do much for me. However, we bought some, and me and my friend, we made pot cookies, and they were, literally they're huge, and we made 20 of them or something. They were huge, and they're probably 5-inch cookies. They're enormous, chocolate chip cookies, and cream cool chocolate chip pot cookies, basically. And you make it with the butter. Anyway, so I did that, and we did that, and I tried it, and I had a half of that cookie, which I said is huge, right? And so the first time I had that, I was like, oh my God. It was like on a different planet. And we had gone to a haunted house that night or something. And so it was just very weird. It was October, I guess. Anyway, so since then, if I've ever done it, it's only been a quarter of one of those cookies or whatever. So my point is, I prefer edibles to anything personally. I don't like the actual smoking of it or anything. And I prefer it in food or something for me personally. And also it's stronger that way actually, and gets in your bloodstream for a longer period of time. And it takes longer to get in there, but once it does, it's more of a, more intense high. And, but anyway, it's a good thing to use if you have anxiety issues like I do and have my entire life. And if you have other issues like depression or whatever, people who have, other issues, use it as well. And people who have glaucoma or whatever. But my point was going to be that I even before I ever used it 6 months ago, I'd always been a proponent of pot and marijuana because I think all the research I've read about it and done on it myself and from experts and doctors and people like that who are unbiased about it, who are just looking at it from a scientific perspective, they always have said that, it has all these great benefits and the drawbacks are very, very few, if any. And they even say now that the fact that people often have memory loss after using pot, it's only lasts a day or two, and then your memory comes back, so it doesn't actually affect it long term. So my point is, I think it's a good thing to do, and so when I just want to say a shout out to that today on 420, since that's what today is all about. And I did not partake today, but like I said, I'm not a big user of anything, but I just thought I would say hey to Mary Jane. So thanks, Mary Jane. Anyway, so I wanted to also go into why we've been gone. We've been gone for, 4 months now. We used to do the show pretty much on the clock, by the clock every week, almost every single week for 2 years. And once a week, we'd do it usually on Thursdays. Jason and I would. And unfortunately, Jason and I had a bit of a disagreement, and feelings were hurt and other things as a result of that. And so we hadn't talked until recently. And so we had talked, and he said he was going to do the show tonight, and apparently he's not. So, and that's one of the things that annoys me. I mean, if you're going to make a commitment to someone, then you need to actually keep it, and that's what really pisses me off. So that's one of the things that pissed me off in the first place. So, anywho, I try to be respectful of people's time, and if I say I'm going to do something, I try to do it, and not everybody feels that way, apparently. Anyway, so that's why we've been off the air for so long. But I decided, so I'm just doing the show myself tonight, obviously, and I'll continue to do it weekly if I have the time on Fridays. So look for the show on Fridays live. As always, the show's always live. Unlike most podcasts, we do the show live. And probably do it every Friday around 10 or so if I have the time and the availability to do it, and whether Jason's here or not. So that's what that's about. Now, so let's talk about some things going on in the news. First of all, we got to talk about the whole Starbucks thing. Okay, so since I've been gone, there's been a lot of stuff that's happened, obviously, since I've been off, haven't done the show or whatever. It's for 4 months or almost 5 months or whatever. I think that Starbucks. Let's talk about that. So I don't know if you've heard of it. I'm sure you have. There's been 2 instances, things that have happened as a result of Starbucks's sort of, I don't know, bigotry or prejudice or whatever you want to call it. One of those instances was I think it was in Philadelphia, or somewhere in Pennsylvania. I think it was Philadelphia, and they had 2 black men who came into the Starbucks there, and when they did, a woman came in as well. She was not with them, but she came in at the same time they did. And none of the 3 of them purchased anything. They just sat down, and they were waiting, all 3 of them, not knowing each other, though. The two black guys were together, and the one white woman was elsewhere in the store. But anyway, all 3 were waiting for someone. 2 black guys were waiting for one guy, and she was waiting for someone else. Anyway, so while the 2 black guys were waiting there, the cops come in and arrest them for loitering or whatever because they didn't purchase anything. Now... And they were black, of course, and they didn't bother or say anything to the Caucasian woman who was doing the same thing. Didn't even ask her a question, whatever, just them. And what had happened is the general manager or the manager of the store had called the cops as soon as he saw them 2 minutes after they came in the store and told the cops to arrest them and get them out of the store. And, of course, that was completely racially charged and biased. There was no reason for that. And obviously, without any kind of cause. I mean, they were just sitting there. Now, how many people do you know who go to a Starbucks and use the bathroom and not buy anything, or go in and wait for someone and then buy something when the person gets there or whatever, possibly? Now, I've, in the past, I've gone to Starbucks before, and Starbucks, is that the way you say plural? Starbucks? I don't know, whatever. Anyway, so I've been in there before in the past, and it's been around for so long, and I waited to meet with people, and then once the person got there, then I would get something to drink or whatever, usually. And sometimes I would go in and buy something, sit down, and then wait. It just depended. But the point is that people do this all the time. And the only difference was with these two men was that they were two black men and not a white woman who was sitting there doing exactly the same thing. So it was obviously, and anyone who says it wasn't a racial thing is an idiot and a liar and blind. It was obviously a racially charged thing. And so that obviously brought a lot of horrible publicity to Starbucks. And Starbucks, as a result of this, closed down all of their stores on one day, this week or last week, I can't remember which day it was, and for sensitivity training, racial sensitivity training. Now, I don't know how much that's going to do. I mean, if you have someone who is just discriminating against someone just because of the color of their skin and their racial makeup or whatever, and not for any real reason, I mean, you've got a bigger problem than that. The people you're hiring need to be looked into if they're that racist. I mean, they're that racist that they're so afraid of these two black guys who come in and just sit down. I mean, it's fucking ridiculous. So anyway, once that came out, the following week, another video that had been taken 2 weeks earlier in another location had come out where a black man went into a Starbucks just by himself and he asked to use the restroom key. He didn't purchase anything yet. He just asked to use the restroom key. And he was denied by the girl at the counter. So he goes and he's wondering to himself if this is a racial thing or if it's just their policy. So he goes and he sits and he waits and he records on his phone kind of surreptitiously, waiting for someone to go in to do the same thing or whatever. And so this white guy comes in there and he asks to use the restroom key, sometime later. And she says, sure. She gives him the restroom key. He doesn't buy anything. He goes into the restroom. So the black guy waits for him to come out, and he's recording when he does, and he asks him if he could ask him a question. He says, sure. He said, did you just use the restroom? He said, yes. And he's like, did you ask for the key before you went in there? He's like, yes. Did you purchase anything before you went in there? He said, no. He said, well, I just asked you the same thing, and apparently it's not okay for me, but it's okay for you. And so he says, come over here with me if you don't mind, to the register. And so they go to the register, and he's still recording everything and recording the reaction of the girl at the register. He says, hey, so his name was Wendell or whatever, the white guy's name, I can't remember. Wendell here just asked for the key, and you gave him a key, and I just asked for one 10 minutes earlier, and you said no. And neither one of us purchased anything. Why is that? What's different about us? Blah, blah, blah. And she said, you need to stop recording right now. And all she kept saying, stop recording, stop recording, stop recording. He's like, please speak to your manager. And she's, I am the manager. And he's like, well, you don't know what you're doing or whatever. Anyway, and so that was just another incident with racism in a Starbucks. And so I don't know. I mean, Starbucks to me, it is kind of a white thing. I mean, coffee shops in general are considered like culturally just more of a white. I don't know. It's not that black people don't drink coffee. I'm just saying it's like a company that is sort of whitewashed. I don't know how to explain it. You know what I'm saying? Culturally, I think it's like a white business. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, the point is that I think that, which is not right, by the way, but I think that because that most of their clientele are probably a lot of white women, with their cups in their hand, the Starbucks cups in their hand, and going to work in the morning or whatever the case may be, or at lunch, the stereotypical Starbucks diva. That's their typical expected customer, I think. So with that, and you have these people who come in who don't match that criteria, and you hire people who also have this bias towards people who are not like that, you end up with this kind of incident. So I think it's unfortunate because I love Starbucks, and also I read Howard Schultz's book a long time ago. It was like 3 years ago, I think, or something, and it was very inspiring and very good. And I think that it was his philosophy about business and everything is amazing. And I think that he's also, he's incredibly liberal. He's not at all a conservative person, and he's definitely not a racist or anything like that. He himself is not. And so usually those kind of values filter down throughout the company when you have this huge corporation that you're running. Usually that kind of thing happens as a result of your guidance. But unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be the case. I mean, of course, when it's that big, you're of course going to have people who are not going to, agree with you or think the same way you do. But I think it's unfortunate because Starbucks as a whole has always been a company that is very, very open-minded, gives to a lot of different liberal organizations, and like Planned Parenthood and like HRC and gay organizations, things like that, and support them and support gay people in employment and domestic partner benefits and all this other stuff. So they're not the company's culture is certainly not one that would support this. And they have done something about it. Initially, they said they were sorry, and apparently people were screaming saying that wasn't enough. So they, of course, they fired the manager who did this the first incident that I mentioned. And then they instituted that mandatory sensitivity training across the country at all of their stores. So when you live in America, this kind of thing, unfortunately, is not uncommon. This is what happens with being a racial minority in America. And the thing people need to remember is within 5 years, Caucasians will be the minority in this country, not the brown people, if you want to call them that. So it's not, something people think about, but except people who are usually racist who give a fuck about something like that, like who's the more dominant race in this country or races in this country. But it is something people think about who give a fuck, like Nazis and people like that. But anyway, so I just wanted you to know that is what's happened with that whole thing, and it's been unfortunate, of course, and I think it's very sad. Also, there has been there was this tape. It was a frat party at the University of Delaware. And these guys who are part of the Phi Gamma Delta, which is the Phi Delts, which I have been to one of their parties, and Phi Delts are horrible people in general, it seems. I'm sure all of them aren't horrible people, but the ones that I met were just the stereotypical frat boys, and they were horrible and awful people. Anyway, and Kappa Sigma Chi Lambda had an off-campus party. And the guy's name was Rancho Valdez, and he was invited to the event, and he spent a lot of time there before a group of men approached him. And one started calling him faggot and stuff like that. And so the guy, Valdez, raised his middle finger in response. And then that's when they jumped him. And he says, quote, "I got up and pushed them back, and then they all started throwing punches. I fell and broke my ankle, and they still kept going until my friend Erica tried to pull them off. I was literally just walking to the backyard with my friend, and then they just targeted me and came towards me." The president of the University of Delaware said in a statement that, quote, "This kind of reprehensible behavior is not tolerated at the University of Delaware. We will take all appropriate measures in the student conduct process to ensure any offenders are held accountable for their actions." This is not surprising either. I mean, the thing about Starbucks and the thing about this homophobia that's happening, it's not just that it's never happened before, but it's certainly been elevated and certainly been, stoked by Trump and his supporters and people who, follow him because he is the president and he sets the tone for the country. That's what that office does. And as a result of his lack of leadership and his own personal bigotry and racism, homophobia, and everything else that's horrible. That, of course, has been filtering down into the behavior of everyone who would support him or believe in his causes, which is mostly racist, homophobic, backwater bullshit. So this isn't surprising behavior either. Fortunately, the guy is going to survive, but his leg was broken as a result of this. And, look, if I had been in a frat party, and which I have been at actually a Phi Delta frat party in 1993, and they had said faggot to me, I would have done the same fucking thing. I was like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, and stuck my fucking finger up there. I mean, I would have done the same fucking thing. I've probably been a lot more animated than they said this guy was. But I good for him for standing up for himself in the face of these fucking Neanderthals. So I'm happy he stood up for himself despite the actual consequences of that action, because, it shows that, we homosexuals may be homosexual, which is fine with me and it should be fine with you. But if it's not okay with you, fuck you. We don't give a fuck what you think. So good for him. And hopefully that will continue. I think that, when one person stands up for something like this, it makes a difference. And this has made national headlines, and that makes a difference. It doesn't seem like it may and may not mean much to some people, but when a kid out there who's gay or in the closet or whether they are or not, and is wanting to see role models for themselves to follow or to emulate as they grow up and figure out who they are. Something as small as this can really make a huge difference in someone's psyche, especially at that age when you're a teenager. I know if I'd seen this at that age, it would have empowered me even more to be myself and been more, open and stuff. I mean, I was openly gay since I was 14, out or whatever, but I still was 14. Yeah, so 14. But I still, was, at that age afraid. And as I got older, I wasn't afraid anymore. But the point is, if I'd seen someone do this, it would have given me a sense of pride about myself more than having to always have felt the victim. Like in the 90s, it was always about the victims. It was always about the people who were, who were gay. They were either dying of AIDS or they were being beat up and picked on or whatever, or they were somehow a horrible person in some way or another, a murderer or something stupid. So it was always reflective of that. And so fortunately these days we have positive role models to emulate and to look up to when we didn't in those days. So it's made a huge difference, I think, in society. And this is the difference now than maybe when I was that age or younger, because people in those days probably wouldn't have done what he did. I certainly would have, but I'm different. So anyway, that was something else. So I wanted to also talk about, there was an article about 5 profile tips for getting exactly what you want out of online dating. Now, I am married, but I do have to say that I have been, I certainly have been on my share of dates, when I was single. So I certainly know, and I've been dating since I was 15 years old. And so I certainly know the whole game and whatever. But these days it's even different because most things, even when I was dating, when I was a teenager and in my 20s, even though I'd always had the internet since I was 14. And so I've been meeting people that way and dating and everything else that way. The majority of the time, most people in that time didn't have a computer and didn't even know what it was or the internet. So most people just, met people at bars or met people, in public or through parties or friends or whatever. And today, almost everything, it seems, is exclusively online dating. And the funny thing is, when I was doing online dating in the 90s, people were like, ew, who are you meeting online? Like, there's some weird people out there and whatever. It was just like a taboo thing to meet people online. It was viewed as weird because no one really understood the internet yet. And they didn't really understand that there weren't just people living in their basement, pedophiles or something on the internet in that time. There actually were people like me, normal people, and people who were looking for a relationship and whatever. So anyway, these tips are 5 tips to get the most out of what you want out of online dating. And I love these because I think they're absolutely right. One is be brave. And I couldn't have said that better myself because it says, if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love somebody else? That's, who said that? That's, of course, RuPaul. But anyway, and many other people have said that as well. But it's true. You have to really be brave and put yourself out there and love yourself, I think. You have to like yourself in order to get what you want from dating. You have to like yourself and know yourself, because if you don't know yourself, you're certainly not going to know who the fuck you're going to like either, and who to pair up with and who to actually, get to know. And so it's talking about also telling the truth about your age, which I've always done. I never have lied about my age, or your income or what you do for a living or whatever, to be completely open and honest, and that will attract to you the same thing, hopefully. But if you're going to lie and be someone you're not, you're going to attract the wrong kind of person that's not right for the real you. So that's how I think about that. Number 2 is pick a great picture to use. And it's people who don't have pictures on their profiles or whatever, I'm like, it's 2018. how can you not have a profile picture? Or, you know, like on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, or I mean, assuming like on Grindr or Scruff or anything like that. I mean, for God's sakes, everybody has a fucking phone these days. For God's sakes, take a goddamn picture and get a good one. There's so many, anybody can take a good picture if they make a fucking effort. So make a picture that looks like you, not from now and not from 10 years ago. Number 3, be honest with what you want. If you're looking for sex, say you want sex. There's no shame in looking for sex. In fact, sex is a good thing. But people who are romantic, who really want love and flowers and music and romance and all that kind of stuff, that's great too. But just don't expect to find romance if you're going to sleep with them on the first date. If you're looking for romance, then don't sleep with them on the first date. If you're looking for sex, then that's fine. And I think that's a good thing to say, because when you sleep with someone on the first date, it's not like I don't think there's anything wrong with sleeping with someone on the first date. Sometimes it just works out that great. It's great, and the chemistry is great, whatever, fine. But I think it's not ideal, because you want to get to know the person in a different light first, and you already know you're attracted to one another. And so it's really unlikely that you're not going to be compatible anyway. So I always say, you know, wait a few dates at least to have sex if you're really interested in someone as a romantic partner, possibly. And also part of romance is anticipation and getting to learn about the other person and discover the things about them, you know, including their body and who they are sexually and stuff like that. And it's better to let it unfold slowly if you're a romantic. Otherwise, if you're not, just go fuck them, you know, whatever. Number 4, be accessible. So we all have standards, but do you really need to make a prospective suitor run a gauntlet to get a simple date or just even a hookup? Long lists of like what you want in a mate, even when it's legitimate, makes the other person feel like you're a person who's impossible to please. And so the phrase is like no fats and no femmes or no blacks or whatever is offensive, and it says a lot about the person saying it, you know, a lot more about the person saying it than it does about you, about the other person, I mean. So anyway, just say what you like. You can say what you like, but don't say what you don't like, because it's better to be positive instead of negative. Say, you know, oh, I like fit guys who are you know, masculine or whatever. You can say that. I guess that's okay, even though that's kind of iffy too. But you could say, yeah, I like masculine fit men or something like that. Or like, you know, men who like sports or whatever the fuck you consider to be masculine, who does this, who does that, whatever you equate to masculinity. Say that instead of saying masculine or no femmes. If you're not into people who are not perfectly fit, then say you want someone who's fit and takes fitness as a priority in their life. That way you won't get someone who's overweight. And so, you know, and if you don't like black people or Hispanic people or white people or whatever, don't say no black people, no white people, no whatever. Don't say that. Say, I like, you know, like if you like blondes, say I like blondes, and they'll get the picture. You'd like white blonde guys. If you like, you know, black guys, then say, you know, like dark skinned guys or something like that. Whatever. You don't have to say no blacks, no fats or whatever. Just say what you do want, not what you don't want. I think that's great advice as well. And lastly, it says don't be an asshole. It says you don't live a life so burdened by your own sexiness that you have the right to ask an entire ethnic, racial, body type, or gender expressive groups of people to not contact you because you find them generally undesirable. Just what I was just talking about. Keep your bigotry to yourself. Your selfish motives are not important compared to the hate you create with your marginalization of other human beings. Of course, everyone has favorites, and if you have a type or preference, say beefy blonde. See, this is exactly what I just said, and I hadn't even read this yet. This is hilarious. Say beefy blonde guys or Pacific Islanders who look great oiled and up and shirtless. Then say so and happy hunting. But also, everyone deserves a chance to feel that someone is dreaming of finding them, and they don't need to be informed that they are undesirable to you. And you may think, for example, I'm not into black guys, but if Tay Diggs stepped out of a How Stella Got a Groove back and walked into your bedroom, stripped down to his Speedo, and licked his lips, you would take that moment to confront your racial preference, and you would get over it in a hurry. I love this. That's great. That's great writing. Who wrote this, by the way? It just says by editors. It doesn't tell me who actually wrote it. But anyway, it's really funny. It's on QWERTY, by the way. Anyway, so yeah, that's some really good tips, I think, you know, and pretty much the same advice I would give anyone who, if they'd ask me the same, you know, kind of question. So yeah, good stuff. Also we have, what else is on here? there are today we found out that I don't know if you know who Avicii is. Most gay guys know who Avicii was or is or was. He died today. He was only 28 years old. He had done a lot of great music recently in really a short period of time, mainly in the last 5 to 10 years, 5 to 8 years or something like that. He's done like a ton of music, great music, and he's done major Madonna hits, and he's done major, like everybody's got a hit with him and done music with him because he's so good at it. And almost everything he did became a hit. So it's really sad. His real name is Tim Bergling. He went by Avicii, but he was found dead Friday today. And they didn't give a reason as to why he died or whatever, but he had issues with his pancreatitis, and he had excessive drinking, and that's what caused it before. He apparently stopped drinking, but maybe he still had issues with that. And he also had a gallbladder and appendix removed recently too. So I'm not sure what caused it, but yeah, it's just sad. I hate to see anybody talented. It's really weird. It seems like a lot of people who are exceptionally talented die so young. And it's weird to me that, it's people like Marilyn Monroe, Monty Clift, or whatever, people like River Phoenix, and there's so many, I can't even think of them, Corey Haim, whatever. There's so many people who died, and they were so exceptionally, Michael Jackson, and Whitney Houston, and Prince, and even though they were older than this guy, they're still young. So I think it's sad. I think, though, that this, I once was told by a psychic when I was 19 years old. I asked her if I should be an actor. I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be go to Hollywood and be an actor. And I never thought, okay, I would never make it as an actor because I didn't fit any particular, I wasn't white. I'm only half white. So I wasn't didn't appear white. I appeared ethnic. So I appeared like I was Middle Eastern or Hispanic, even though I'm half white and half black. So I was like, I would never fit in anywhere. Now, these days, there's so many people like me on the big screen and in film and in theater and in music that it really wouldn't matter. And so if I had done it, I probably would have been successful, I think. But I was so afraid to do it. But anyway, my point was going to be is that the psychic told me that she said, because I asked her about whether I should go into architecture and design, which I was into, obviously, or if I should go into acting and which way I should go. And she said that either way would be successful for me. However, on a financial level or in career level, I would be successful in them. But she said, however, she said the spirit, I still remember, I still have the tape actually somewhere. It was on cassette tape. She recorded the reading for me. She said, I'm getting from the spirits that this would not be a good thing for you emotionally, being in that environment of Hollywood or music and all that stuff, because it's such a soul crushing atmosphere. Not only if you are trying to make it, of course, obviously, and trying to get into it, but also just trying to stay on top once you're on top and trying to stay in, and just the environment people are in. And there's all the drugs and the drinking and the backstabbing, and it's all about money and whatever, blah, blah, blah. So it's just not, and everything's fake and not real. And so she was explaining to me that for me, someone as sensitive as I am, it'd be very difficult for me to be happy doing that. Even though if I stuck with it, I would make it, she said, I would probably be extraordinarily depressed and sad, and from the rejections and things I would get going up the ladder. So, and she's right. I don't think I would have survived. I think I may have killed myself or something if I'd gone that route, because I honestly, at that age, I was I'm sensitive, but I'm not like touchy sensitive. And I don't know how to explain it, but anyway, in those years I was so sensitive that it would, and so insecure. I think that's the difference. I think even though I'm still sensitive to some degree, I'm not insecure like I was when I was 19 years old. And so I think that makes a huge difference when you're trying to be an actor or an actress or whatever. My point about that is that this Avicii, he apparently was a pretty cool guy and was not really down with drugs and stuff or whatever. That's what they were saying anyway. And so, but maybe he took part of that. So that whole environment kind of ends up kind of killing people so young, it seems. And so that was my point. Anyway, so what else do I have to talk about before I go? I had on here my little list here. Oh yeah. Oh my God. Well, in politics, 10 Louisiana Republicans voted to keep bestiality legal and anal sex against the law. So basically, well, first of all, they call them crimes against nature. So it's not just a gay law against gay people, obviously, because the thing is, people always say, oh, gay men have anal sex, it's disgusting, whatever. Well, a lot of heterosexual people have anal sex as well. And sometimes it's not just the man giving it to the woman. Sometimes it's the other way around, okay, with a strap on. So it does not matter if you're male or female, heterosexual or homosexual, you may still participate in anal sex because it feels good. So anyway, I think that the fact that they obviously are equating it with, or actually not equating it even, they're making anal sex illegal still, but keeping bestiality legal is the most ridiculous thing ever. So it's okay to fuck a cow or a goat or your own pet, but not another consenting male or female of the same gender. Or opposite sex, I guess, in this case. But this is, of course, in Louisiana, so you can't expect much from Louisiana or states in the South because people in the South are generally idiots. I'm sorry, people who live in Louisiana or like it or love it, whatever. I'm sorry. I love people from Louisiana. People I know from Louisiana, like Ellen DeGeneres is from Louisiana. I don't know her, but I'm saying she's from there. There's some great people from Louisiana and from southern states, of course. I'm from a southern state. I'm a great person. So there you go. So I'm just saying, but the preponderance of people and the groupthink of these southern states is so like 1880 or whatever. It's so far back that they just want to keep things the way they were when there were slaves and, people, they were calling people massa. So I think that it's, and they of course don't tolerate gay people, period. Cause we didn't exist before now, I guess. Anyway, so it's just another fucking stab in the neck from the fucking Republicans, which fucking suck anyway. Oh my God, there is this guy. His name is Xander Hodgson. I think it's Xander Hodgson. He was in a couple of UK shows or whatever. Anyway, he just came out as gay. He's 27 years old, and oh my God, is he beautiful? You have to look him up. It's Xander, Hodgson, on Instagram or on whatever, online, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But he just came out, and so everybody's mouth are drooling over him. He's really, really beautiful. I think he's from Sweden or something. Where's he from? He's British, actually. He looks Swedish or something, but he's really gorgeous. So check out him on your Instagram. By the way, I don't know how many of you use Instagram. I use it all the time now. Well, not all the time. I use it occasionally, I guess I should say. I used to never be on Instagram, but it wasn't until probably the last year I started using it more often. And I found some really amazing, really interesting people on there. It's fun to keep up with celebrities and, people that you follow on there. But people that I would never have met necessarily, I've met through there. It's kind of fun just to watch their lives through pictures. And so I really think Instagram in a lot of ways is better than Facebook because, I don't know. Facebook has its positives as well. Of course, lately it's been a lot of trouble with the law or the politics or whatever, but I think it's Instagram is just, I don't know, it's snappier, it's easier, it's quicker, and I think people like me who are visual really appreciate it more, so I certainly do. I think that's everything I had to talk about tonight. I'm trying to make sure I get everything off my little list here. Yeah, that's pretty much everything, I guess. Oh, well, there's one more thing I forgot. I have a friend who she's going through some major things in her relationship, and I feel so bad for her because she is such a sweet, sweet, sweet woman, and you can tell she has a huge heart. She loves so much with her heart, and she really cares about people, and she really loves her partner and her boyfriend, and she has a kid, and she's very, I don't know, she's a sweet person, and she really cares about people, and I don't know how else to explain it to you. But anyway, she has been having issues because she found out that her boyfriend had cheated on her, and she had suspicions of whatever, and she just recently, just today, I think she said, had confronted him about something that had happened. She discovered this maybe like a month ago, I think, or something. And I told her, you need to confront him, and you shouldn't put up with this bullshit. And this is something she's suspected, and of course, he also neglects her. and ignores her, ignores what she wants in the relationship, ignores what she needs, ignores her period for the most part. Acts like he's not even with her, and he cheats on her all the time or whatever. So he's always out of town and stuff as well. So I think, and yeah, he stays, and when she confronts him about it, he just says, "I'm not going to be policed by you," or whatever. He's a fucking prick, and she needs to get rid of him, and she's so much fucking better than this guy. So much fucking better than him. But I wanted to say that, neglect, which is what this guy does to her, is a form of abuse. So if you neglect your partner, if you neglect what their needs are, whether it's they need sex and you don't give them sex, whether they need affection, you don't give them affection, whether they need just to listen to them, whatever it is that they really need. Everybody has different needs in relationships. And you just refuse to give it to them. That's neglect. And so, and to ignore what someone else's needs are, and you're supposed to be in a relationship, which is a two-way street, then you need to fucking get rid of that person. Because honestly, the truth is that I've certainly learned, unfortunately, that people don't change unless they want to. And the older they get, the less likely they're going to change. So it's really her fault for staying. And, as it would be my fault for staying if I were in the similar situation as she is. So I certainly think that you have to remember in relationships, neglect is another form of abuse. It's not just physical abuse, it's emotional as well. And I think it's certainly important to remember that. So that's the little PSA for today. So anyway, well, that was tonight's show. Now, so Jason did not show up for the show, which really pisses me off because he told me he would. So if he wants to be that way, that's so be it. He just won't be on the show, I guess, anymore. And I will certainly be back next week or the week after on this show or Off Limits show, whatever the case may be. But before I go, I wanted to make sure I played out with this new song by Chris Crocker, which is called Where I Begin. It's a little ballad on his new album, which is also called Chris Crocker. And you should check it out on, on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever you listen to your music on. And give it a listen. It's pretty good. And give him a chance. I think it's actually, I'm impressed, actually. I'm surprised. I'm surprised by the fact that he's as good as I think he could be. I think he's, like I said, this is his freshman album, but you can see the potential he's got, and I think there's a lot of really good stuff on here. So check it out and tell me what you think, and I'll be back next time. And everybody have a great night and stay gay. Good night, everybody.